This topic is something that Jennifer and I have been working on together for the last couple of weeks now. So my numbers and their numbers are pretty close. Rhonda, would you see if she's at Jennifer's office?
Sorry. Miss Heather.
Went to do something. Well, really. It's. Bring the coffee table in your house. Thank you, sir. Put the recycling, that's okay. Yeah, appreciate that. Well, I guess, this 9:15 or 9 o'clock appointment, working with Jennifer on,
She's on her way.
okay. On some proposed legislation, to abolish property tax and House Bill 335, which is a proposed replacement of property tax with 1% increase in sales tax. And, give you a prediction of what that may look like and shortfalls that would occur. So I asked Jennifer to provide some information. She was going to come in, provide that information. So with that said, hand off to her. Of course, it's proposed legislation, but I want to put the information out to you guys, and just so we have some plans here for next year and the year after that. What our carryover is, what we can withstand, what we cannot withstand, so forth, so on. And if you support those, and if you want to lobby for or against those bills. CCAO has been in opposition to House Bill 335.
Now, they do have an extra copy of everything. Basically, excuse me, 335 is 3 bills combined or previously proposed. There's a lot in this bill. The main one being, I think, prohibits levying inside millage, which is a big chunk of our revenue. It's about 18% of the general fund's revenue. When I did these calculations, I did it based on there being collection of no property tax, so this is for the entire county. But one of the things that it contains in this bill is that, you know, local governments have the ability to raise money from other sources. Specifically, we mentioned sales tax. Well, in order to cover entire loss of property tax, sales tax would have to be pretty much doubled, about 15.5%. The problem with sales tax is it's not a guaranteed source of revenue, because people can go other places to buy things, people can buy other things.
That approval in that increase would go to the ballot as well.
Right, they're only talking about 1%.
1%.
Cover.
So you still have the 1%, right, or 7%. So you go to 8% and then add another 9%, but it would be up to the voters whether or not you would actually realize that 1%.
Right. Another item that's in this bill is to reduce real estate taxes is that the county could have a local homestead piggyback, which means we would reduce the valuation on properties, like basically double what it is now for homestead, but we would end up paying for it. Right now, the state reimburses us for the homestead deduction, so, but that would be a hit on us if we decided to do that. Last year, the state reimbursed us for homestead $778,000. Okay. And it also has in there about budget commission overseeing excess reserves and all the municipalities, school districts, that kind of thing, any carryover for 30%. They want the budget commission to cut back on the levy collections. So there's a lot in this thing. But it also caps some of the inside knowledge for schools also.
So estimated property tax, based off of 2025 numbers, I think we were at like 6 million to 6.5
That sounds about right.
million, give or take, estimated sales tax, 11 million. And of course, that is, it fluctuate, but I'm just trying to give a financial, overview, more or less.
In 24, our real property tax that was collected for the general fund was just under 5.3 million, which is 18% of our budget for the general fund. The sales tax we collected was about 10,600,000, and that's 36% currently of our general fund budget.
So. It's a correct word, it might be a word I just made up, survivability. If something like this would actually come to fruition, I did set up that budget stabilization line, how many years ago, maybe 5 more years ago or so. But we are just a little bit over $3 million in that one. So this definitely falls within the requirements of utilizing those funds, that budget stabilization account. So you have $3 million there. We have, and Rhonda help me out because I forgot already what our carryover was. 17, 18 million. Jennifer, I don't know if you have that handy or not.
General fund from last year,
Yeah.
yes, 17,800,000 or so.
And so you're looking at, you'd say 20 million. Yeah, basically, right, and for low employees and so there's on. I mean, I don't, is it 2008 all over again in a different form? If this happens, I don't know, but you're looking at 20 million to work with, and that would eliminate the new sheriff's campus altogether.
This CCAO and your state association, like, do they get the feeling that the legislature is realizing the impact?
We've been talking to them for 2 years about this, and, you know, one of the things I put in your packet is the CAAO's view on property taxations. And, you know, I believe, I don't know if your groups come out with, you know, anything in writing about it, but.
I haven't found a county administrator with some support of it, and CCO is adamantly against 235 and are lobbying on the rejection of that. Now that's 335. There's also the movement for the abolishment of property taxes based on petition, 430-some thousand signatures, which I think they probably already have by now, which would take it to the ballot. Anybody feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's this abolishment comes in different forms and the end could be nearly the same. I don't think anyone's disagreeing that there needs to be tax reform, but in my opinion, this is kind of like using a bomb instead of a scalpel.
Well, there's no other source of revenue. They're proposing, it's just
Yeah,
get rid of it and then it's up to the locals to figure it out.
yeah, and the two representatives based on the press conference, if you had the opportunity to watch that or not, I mean, they're basically saying counties need to cut costs and diversify their revenue stream. Their only proposed Band-Aid, in my mind, is that 1% increase in sales tax.
That will even come close to going the whole.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like their attitude is that there's too many local government entities, we need to merge and consolidate and.
Shared services was definitely one of their top solutions, which have always excelled at, you know. And Mid-Ohio, good or bad, is a prime example.
Well, I'll share too. I was on the OCCO meetings. I went to, I think it was the November, December meeting. Matt Hutton was there. And he gave us this whole diatribe about, you know, how the states fit into the federal government, then ultimately came down to the local governments and stuff like that. But what he was really getting at was, he was for reform of county government and local government in general. So this feels like, to Jennifer's point, a step in that direction. It's almost like trying to force counties to consolidate or something along those lines is the feeling I get.
Yeah, well, the coroner,
I think he thinks there's too many counties. And that county government needs to be simplified.
I believe the county coroner position was that will be appointed, right? Am I-
I thought it was going to go way back.
They're going to be voted. I think they'll be voted.
You know, they're still fussing around with,
That's an example.
they're still fussing around with PS people for engineers.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Like I said, you know, I know our association, our director, our lobbyist, will be here at the State House, because it affects about towns in the state of Ohio, growings. There's 5 millage. There's only a few that are destination counties that can survive on their tax. You know, alone when you think about your Geog or Cedarville, Kings Island destination counties. So, I think we're in this boat with a lot of our partners. We have a lot of support and opposition to this. To see we're good, but to understand, you know, we want to think about and build the what is on this, what direction we're going to go, get to, I go with the budget bill next month, right? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I think a lot of this is in the court of public opinion as well. If you talk to the public, there's very few that actually know what property tax is used for.
Right.
Very few.
No, I have a conversation all the time that doesn't give roads.
Yeah.
For Jennifer, I understand they think they're chair office.
I mean,
Don't want to
What's
spend any more
Right.
Sorry, right.
yeah.
Yeah, and, general mistrust of government. I had this conversation on Saturday, and it's like, now we can account for everything, which they could not believe. And I'm like, no, trust me. We have budgets and numbers and who gets what and where it goes and so
There's not
forth.
an understanding of all the things that the county government is, you know, obligated to support. There's just not a good understanding. You know, 20 years ago, the county government, we were like the good guys, you know, and the whole distrust of federal and state government is trickled down to the local government. Now, the local government is just as evil as the state, but that's the feel I get from
Well, it's rough all over. And that may be true in some of the bigger counties. Sheriff, needless to say, the campus facility building, you know, that may need to be cut down. We can discuss that later, but one thing I meant to look at, but I didn't, was the amount of your budget that came from the general fund. And if that was eliminated, I think your only option would be a levy to bridge that gap.
Say statutorily, they have to serve the poor, statutorily, we have to hold the prisoners, to keep the peace.
Yeah.
So we do everything contractually wise, you know, what our increases are. So at that point in time, or we have to consider how many staff you want to get rid of.
Yeah.
What you want to secure this county and think about, we want security, you know, I'll do my due diligence to work with John, with the board. But there might be some heavy decisions that have to be made that impact your county. Safety and security of everyone.
So I'm trying to be proactive and not reactive. Like, this is what we're facing. Like it or not, if it happens, then we have some plans in place to provide those statutorily required services. So,
All new.
yeah, so,
And then, so,
We appreciate the numbers and the conversation, as you said, I mean, it's something good to get our heads wrapped around early. And have a plan in case it does happen, in case it comes to fruition, so it's good that we've started down that path.
You know what the effective date of 335 would be?
2026, I believe,
Okay,
that would be for the tax year.
mhm, so, elected in 27.
Yeah.
so it wouldn't have a 90-day implementation clause like a lot of the bills do. It would be just for the new tax year in 2026. Well, actually, that's essentially right away then, because the 2026 tax year does,
Yes,
Well, we're a year behind, if it's 26 tax year, it's gonna be collected in 27.
Well, it's,
Yeah.
But
26, okay, fuck the drive, okay, yeah.
all that, year 26, and amount of 27. Oh,
but I do remember seeing 2026, something in there, so let me look in there. It could be tax year 2025.
You know, it changes all the time, so we know this.
Very good, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
I did have one other quick thing.
Sure.
I was talking to our, audit firm and they said we're required to have a whistleblower policy, in our employees policy manual. I don't know if we have one currently or not.
I believe the county does, but there's a lot of different policy manuals out there. So we would ask those individual office holders to confirm that that is in there, and if it's not. I believe it is, but I'm not 100% on that. I'll make sure, I'll make note of that though, and make sure that we check on that.
That's what it was. I think it's a well, we'll double check.
I have some things of it, if we need to make one up.
Like there's not many.
Alright.
Okay, very good.
Frank.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Come on down. Well, thank you so much.
Give me that again. I just, wow, there's the black street chair with those sides.
We had a troubles, sure.
We find it sticking to my, it's not meant for me.
Yeah. Full thing.
Yeah.
Very large.
Yeah.
Large would be fine.
Not for online.
Take care. We'll see you.
Minute. All right, good morning, everyone. We will exit our board meeting, enter the Madison County Park District meeting, and call the meeting to order. Everybody should have received a copy of the minutes and the financial report from the May meeting.
Move to approve the minutes and the financial report.
Second.
First and a second, is there any other discussion? None heard, roll call please.
Mr. Shea.
Yes.
Dr. Tuesday.
Yes.
Mr. Wallace.
Yes. All right, moving on to partnership reports. Who would like to kick us off? Everybody,
I say, good.
Brian, go for it.
So we've been missing on the trails here lately, doing some cleanup, spraying some weeds and thinning out some of our pollinators in the plot. We had some volunteers with the Friends Group come out, and help us with that, so it was good to get out and get it taken care of. We did want to let people know that we're doing our, Carrier Appreciation Ride. That's gonna be July 12th at 9 a.m. You know, if anybody's interested, you feel free to spread the word and come join us. And then we're also gonna do a hike out of the little, Darby Prairie Preserve. That's gonna be August 23rd, also in the meeting. So if you got any questions, give us a call at the office or you can look at our website. And then, we did have an update on the future trail map, has been.
Oh, I'll do that.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, that's all for me. Any questions? Oh, sorry. We also have Luna, this is our intern. She started with us about a week ago. And she is just graduated from Madison Plains. And we're happy to have her. She's been a real help. Got anything you want to say?
It's nice to meet all of you and
Nice meeting you.
Hey, I got a real quick question here. I'm sorry for going backwards, but February 10th, 2025, no, February 24th, bathroom repairs, $5,423. What happened to the bathroom?
But it's back when the pipe froze and they had to, so the friends paid for 50% and they could participate. Is that right? Remember that when it froze?
I don't remember. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pipes froze, the meter broke, they had to replace a lot of stuff, to be honest. And so FMCPT did agree to pay half of the cost of that. So I believe 2,700 something is what we paid, compared to, you paid the total, but then we reimbursed. But we also have some concepts in place that we're working on to try to avoid that ever happening again.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Greg, did you want to discuss
I thought Julia had more stuff. No, Julia?
No, later on the agenda, we'll talk about the trail gap and the trail plan. So that's what's coming up next. Otherwise, we're done for the stormwater section.
Okay, so is it time to talk about the trail gap or FMCPT stuff?
Strawberry ride and some of the fun stuff that you've been doing.
Yeah, I don't know if you had more of the stats, Greg, on numbers for the London Strawberry.
Yeah, we had the
Right.
Strawberry bicycle tour on Saturday, the 22nd annual. It went wonderfully, but we got killed because 2 weeks beforehand, there was nothing but thunderstorms predicted for that day. So we were 35 or so up until, as far as compared to last year, up until 2 weeks beforehand. And then the numbers just tanked. People quit signing up. So we ended up being 35 to 40 or so down from what we were the prior year, just because of the threat of rain. Of course, Mother Nature in her fickle self gave us, actually, it was a beautiful day, a little bit of rain, but mostly it was cloudy and nice day for riding. Everybody had a great time. We had just so many good comments on virtually everything, on the efforts of the volunteers, on the road markings, on the treats that we had afterwards, et cetera. So we were very pleased with how it went, other than the fact that, you know, numbers were down. So that was, you know, we can't do anything about Mother Nature, unfortunately. Wayne, do you want to add anything there?
And I just wanted to mention about our campers. We've had 161, 105 so far this year to date, which is our third highest year since 2016. But what was kind of interesting for this year is that in the first 13 days of June, we've had campers from 13 other states camp here. So just to let you know.
Fantastic.
We have quite a variety.
That's very competitive quarter.
Are those folks typically packing in their food items, or are they visiting local restaurants?
Both, yeah. We've had everything from families eating on top of one of the platforms and cooking dinner and washing dishes and so on and so forth, to those that will go looking for the restaurants. It's both.
Very good. Anything from the engineer's office?
No, everything yet. My comments, I think, will be more related to closing the gap.
Very good. All right, moving on to old business then.
So for the future trail use map or the multi-use trail framework plan, you know, I am very interested in getting that plan updated, but the subcommittee met to discuss the goals for updating this plan and reaching out to our communities to kind of get their feedback on our plan and collaboration. But they also started talking about the closing the gap project and whether this was the right time to try anything new. And we're still trying to finish this close the gap project. So in our discussions, we talked about some of the high priorities, which is maybe making some connections between West Jefferson and the Wilson Road Trailhead through road signage and collaborating with West Jefferson and ODOT to make sure the signage was there. And of course, we already discussed working with developers to pay for any trails that occur on those properties and how that, framing that up. And other strategies that we can do without reaching out yet to our neighboring municipalities and townships about our trail map plan. So ultimately, though, they did recommend that we should delay this update to the trail plan until the gap project is completed, because that really does take a lot of focus. And we are working with a volunteer group, and that's kind of where their priority wants to be right now at this moment. But certainly we can do some things in the background that's more short-term and effective. So that's kind of how our group left that conversation, is to put a pause on that until the gap is done.
Makes sense.
And then close the gap. That's really
Close the gap.
that's really what people want to talk about.
Close that gap.
So Greg is having more information for the plan about taking us to that next step closer. And I've been in communication with Kevin about grants and how that's gonna look. So I guess I want to turn it over to Greg, and then based on your questions, Kevin and I, Brian, I'm sure can help answer those questions. Anyway.
Okay, yes, things have been moving wonderfully. Both Norfolk Southern and Open Space Institute, which is the consultant that we've got working with us out of New York, say that we're moving really quickly, that things are going very, very well. We're doing everything in advance of what they needed. So things are going quite positively. In fact, we've gotten to the point now, Norfolk Southern finished their appraisal. They came back and told us what the appraisal number was, and then said, but there's going to be a decrease in that because we have 5 railroad crossings that we no longer need to maintain. And of course, that's a value to us, and we'll take that into consideration in the final number. We are close enough now that it's probably worthwhile that we start talking about numbers, and that you guys start thinking ahead, because they have, actually Norfolk Southern main office has this closure on their books for Q4 this year. So they're so convinced that this is going to happen, they're excited to see it happen, that they've literally put it on their calendar. The number they came back with, their appraisal, was $856,000 to acquire that property. They, it's not final yet, but said probably somewhere in the range of about $100,000 off of that because of the railroad crossing. So somewhere in the range, we're thinking at this point of 750,000, unless something throws us a curveball either one way or the other. And that has happened before. We actually expected this number to come in closer to like 1.2 million. So we were pretty happy with 856, and of course, even more happy with 756 or so. So I wasn't around, and I know most of you on the board weren't around when the trail conversion happened before, rail to trail conversion happened before. But my understanding is that the county paid for the property up front and then was reimbursed through grants, et cetera, that FMCPT helped obtain. We are 100, I'm 100% confident that we're going to be able to obtain the grants and the funding that we need for this, for several reasons. One is Westwood Collective, Andy Warnick downtown, is extremely interested because, of course, this impacts his hotel property, so he can have enough parking to actually open the hotel. He's already mentioned a significant contribution to the project if we're able to cut him out a little piece of land once we acquire it, so that he can have parking. So that's going to take us down probably at least another 6 figures. Plus the Ohio to Erie Trail, which is Cleveland to Cincinnati, the Great American Rail Trail, which is Washington, D.C. to Washington State, the U.S. Bike Route 50, there are, and MORPC, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, they all have a vested interest in seeing this happen. So we've gotten a lot of, I don't think it's incorrect to say, excited responses from them that we're actually getting close to finally making this closure happen. So I think we'll get a lot of support from other areas when we go out to seek further funding, whether it's grants or donations, whatever. So I wanted to put that number out to you guys so you can start thinking about it, and we can start getting some ideas in place. Because again, just to remind you, the process with Norfolk Southern, we have to, and they're working on this currently, develop a contract that we sign saying our intent is to buy this property. And that then needs to be done, even though there's no money put down yet, that needs to be done before it goes to the feds for the abandonment process. And my understanding is that the abandonment process, and they don't perceive any significant hurdles in this abandonment process, would take somewhere in the range of 90 days. And after that time, then we have to come up with the money and purchase the property as per the contract. So that's try to sum it all up. And again, things are moving so well. Norfolk Southern has told us, I think in a month or so, we're actually going to weekly meetings instead of every other week meetings, because we've got so much more to try to take care of. And it's coming to that point where we're getting close. So we're pretty excited that after 20 some years, we've finally been able to move this needle. I'm open to questions. I don't know if Julia, Kevin, Wayne, anybody else wants to add anything there?
Yes, I would chime in on funding sources. There are a number of different funding sources available for a project like this. We have to be careful with the acquisition process to meet certain requirements so that we don't box ourselves out of particular grants. So for instance, the Clean Ohio Trail Fund is available up to $500,000 for acquisition, and that can be used in arrears. But the Transportation Alternatives Program, that money is great for construction, but it can't be used for acquisition in arrears. So we just have to be very careful about how the process is done so that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot when it comes time to actually get the money back.
What would the timing be to buy it?
The Clean Ohio funding, basically you have to have signed a contract or purchased the property within the last 2 years. So that would be an application that would be made next spring. And that again would be up to $500,000
With money available.
The money would not be available until it would be, I think it ended up being almost early the following year because they were not awarding them until the November-ish timeframe. Okay. So there's a good gap there, but there's a high likelihood of success on that particular grant.
So for Clean Ohio, you're saying maybe closer to early 2027. What about other sources of reimbursement? What would the time frame you think be for those?
But you're looking into TAP. I don't know the time frame for TAP.
TAP would be similar in terms of when the money would be available, but that's more for construction, the construction side.
Yes, because even once the property's acquired, you know, it would still need to be agreed to the trail during the costs, which that funding could be used for.
And we don't have a number on that yet at this point, as far as what we would anticipate the construction costs would be.
Greg, does Norfolk Southern's appraisal, does that include them decommission, like removing the rail and ties?
Yes. Now, what they won't do is remove the rails from across the streets, the 5 streets that they have crossings at. Because if they just cut the rails there and leave them, it actually makes a lot less legal or complicated steps that they have to jump through. So other than that, they will take out all the rails and ties that we want them to. If we want them to leave a little bit for like display purposes or whatever, they will do that as well. Any other questions from the park board, especially if you guys, I know this is a, this is a big ask, but it's been, like I said, something that's been in the process and been on the wish list for over 20 years now. So we're thrilled to be able to be to this point, to be able to make that ask.
So the consultant that you're working with, Ray, is she also giving advice on terms of being careful, like Kevin mentions, that we don't box ourselves out in certain brands? Is she that kind of advisor to both of your groups?
She's not advising us on grant processes. She's advising us on the acquisition and abandonment process and the appraisal process as well. Of course, I didn't mention that we do need to get our own appraisal, but that's basically for the grant processes. So we're not going to be using Norfolk Southern's appraisal when it comes to our grant applications. And that's something that we're working with OSI on currently as to who's going to be the best appraiser to do that in this particular situation. It's a little different than just appraising for rental property or house or farmland. Yeah, they don't really advise us. Now, Deanie Lee is her name at OSI, has done a lot of these projects across the country, and she actually is very willing to share with us expert insights and her experience, et cetera, when it comes to anything. So I don't think I'd have a problem asking her about any insights on the grant process, Julia. It's just technically a part of what we're working with them on.
And to be clear, what I'm hearing with the big ask would be that the county would essentially front the money for the purchase with the intention being that it'd be reimbursed through various grants and donations. And obviously you need clarity on what that reimbursement looks like, but is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, correct. And that way the county ends up owning the property. We get it quicker and can move into, the construction phase, et cetera, quicker. But in the end, hopefully it becomes basically a null sum game for the county. They get the property, but it doesn't end up costing money out of the till long term.
So that bridges the gap, right? There's no
Yes,
remaining property
yeah.
between. And has anybody engaged the city of London for any type of contributions? Greg, maybe there's.
Has the city been engaged much?
We don't, we haven't, because the conversation we had a while back was that in overall, long-term, the plan is that the county owns all of the trail. Right now, county owns most of the trail, city owns a piece of the trail, and FMCPT owns a little piece of it. So the long-term goal, because I think it's cleaner and simpler from a management standpoint, is that will become all county-owned property with assistance from FMCPT ongoing, of course. So I don't really personally see it as a benefit to try to kind of entangle again more with the city, since the long-term goal is that we want to unentangle.
They could still have a conversation. I mean, it's right in there. Right in the heart. You know, it's gonna be a benefit to them, I think.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a conversation. Like I said, we've talked to others, you know, Andy Warnick, et cetera, as far as contributions. So there's that as well, but I don't, you know, I'll have to pursue that.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, the next board meeting will be on July 15th. And that concludes the Madison County Park District meeting. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you.
What he was saying is that if you have a super interpreter.
Think about it.
I think.
Straight with that. Straight getting that.
They're very, very. They'll get
I hope it does it.
Good for us to be, it is premature.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we've also had this thing. This person more of an easement.
One whole years ago, he wants to get ordinance and much as with the same state and the fire, you know, we should also. I guess, the first year was gonna walk away. Future. Good point, I would.
Another day.
Another day in the office,
No big.
That's perfect, actually.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I read. Actually, I'm gonna go back to this. If you don't mind.
Or Rob to join. So now for obviously kind of a busy time, but I think Mark will around, but they should say both. I know funny. Oh, if you don't mind sticking for me. I just put them up in Aaron's office and I think they have a kid, make them pretty. This is one entrance, it's like her as well. This one. Thank you. I appreciate that. The scanner was not. No, I'm gonna get it, come by and pick up everything. Okay, all right. So yeah, so I'm everybody.
Nice to meet you finally, Jesse. So I want to give you a card and I got an email, like zipper I put out on the story at like 8 o'clock this morning. Should I resend it to you or is that?
Oh, I can,
Awesome, so make sure you have it. I tried to print it. color it, color it on. Oh, of course, it never fails.
And we guys have.
They come to me in years. And it's basically everything.
Sure.
Definitely have it.
Oh. I'll just have that pulled up. Thank you. Hey, Rhonda. Rhonda. Hey, Rhonda. They are. I haven't invited them. Sorry, do you know the Wi-Fi password?
It's on the yes, it is 49 pounds.
49 count.
If you, yeah,
One more.
that is our main line,
I thought it was the other way around.
then it's the other way around.
Let's try it. Eventually, you'll get there.
And I sent you an invite for the teams meeting.
He's actually looking. Okay.
I sent it to you and so you can join the teams meeting.
I did not, I flipped the presentation to me, she didn't pull it up.
Unless you want,
Oh, okay, that works good.
either way,
Thank you.
I have it set to share my screen. Yep.
Ready? Ready?
Been ready.
You ready?
Want to close that door? Hey, volunteers to close the door?
Short reporter, you ready?
1 second.
1 second, we can do that. Just let me know when you are ready to roll.
Thank you, I'm ready.
Very good. Very good. All right, good morning, everyone. This is the time set aside for the public hearing for a regular annexation petition involving approximately 79 acres from Darby Township to the city of Dublin. We will start first with the city of Dublin and their presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Jesse Champ. I'm representing the city of Dublin as the petitioner in this annexation hearing. I'm here instead of Mr. Boggs, who was the named petitioner. He had a medical appointment he couldn't get out of, so I got to step in. So appreciate your time this morning. City of Dublin is looking forward to growing through this annexation in Madison County and working with all of you in a productive partnership. The city of Dublin is the sole owner of real property in the 79-acre territory proposed to be annexed through this regular annexation. The land is currently agricultural and designated in a CAUB status and subject to a year-to-year farm lease. Dublin has pursued a regular annexation rather than a municipal annexation or an expedited type 2 annexation, so that, should it be granted, it can conform the boundaries of the area with Washington Township. This has been a long-standing practice between Dublin and Washington Township, so that Washington Township can provide all fire and EMS to the boundaries of the city of Dublin. That route is not possible if you pursue an expedited type 2, which is why we're here today having a full regular annexation here. Washington Township has already adopted a resolution stating that should you grant the annexation and should the boundary conformity process complete, that they will provide fire and EMS service to the territory. Assuming that the township boundaries are adjusted, the city is required to provide Darby Township compensation payments over a period of 12 years under Ohio Revised Code 709.19. The payments would be based on improved property value at the time they come due. While at the current time, there is no specific development plan, development would assist in paying for any needed infrastructure upgrades. These compensation payments would not be reduced by any potential future CRA or TIF exemption if those would be provided to commercial or industrial development on the property. In effect, the township would receive a windfall of compensation without any obligation to serve the property. For these reasons at least, this annexation is, on the whole, a benefit to the township, as the property likely would not develop were it to remain unincorporated. Ohio case law holds that the wishes of the property owner are to be considered in the determination of whether or not to grant an annexation, even above the services to be provided, in keeping with the state of Ohio's policy to encourage annexation. Because this is a petition for a regular annexation under Ohio Revised Code section 709.03, the criteria for approval are found in section 709.033 A1 through 6. And if the petitioner has met those criteria, as demonstrated by the evidence in the record, the annexation must be approved. Those criteria are: first, the petition meets all of the technical procedural requirements and was filed in the manner required by law. The record evidence demonstrates that the petition meets those requirements and that this criterion is satisfied. I have prepared exhibits A through G here, which I'll hand to you all in a moment, and I've provided to the court reporter. Respectively, these exhibits are Exhibit A, the annexation petition, and exhibits to the petition. Exhibit B, a notarized affidavit of bad bogs on service of mail to the township and the city and adjacent residents, and proof of certified mail service to the township and the city. Exhibit C, City of Dublin Services Resolution outlining the services to be provided to the area in an approximate timeline. Exhibit D, notice of the publication of the hearing in the Columbus Dispatch on June 2nd. Exhibit E, an affidavit of Paul Hammersmith, City of Dublin engineer. Exhibit F, a request for a court reporter. And Exhibit G, resolution of Washington Township stating that fire services and EMS services will be provided if the annexation is completed and the boundaries are conformed. Second, the persons who signed the petition are owners of real estate located in the territory proposed to be annexed. Again, the record evidence shows that this criterion is satisfied. The sole owner of property is the City of Dublin, and the petition was signed by Megan O'Callaghan, City Manager and Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Dublin. Third, the number of valid signatures on the petition constitute a majority of the owners of real estate in the territory as of the date the petition is filed. Again, the record evidence shows that this criterion is satisfied under the same criteria as step 2, says Dublin is the sole owner. Fourth, the municipality has adopted by ordinance or resolution a statement indicating what services it will provide and an approximate date the service will be provided. The record evidence shows that this criterion is satisfied, and we have City Engineer Paul Hammersmith here today to testify to those services. Fifth, the territory is not unreasonably large. In looking at what unreasonably large means, Ohio courts considered 3 factors. First, the geographic character, shape, and size of annexation territory in relation to both annexing municipality and the territory remaining after the annexation. Second, the ability of the annexing municipality to provide necessary municipal services. And 3, the effect on the remaining township territory. Again, Mr. Hammersmith will testify today to the ability of Dublin to provide the services and the timeline upon which they will be provided. And then also the City of Dublin is approximately 25.04 square miles or 16,000 acres. Darby Township is approximately 21 square miles for about 13,600 acres. And therefore, the 79-acre proposed territory here, it's a metaphorical drop in the bucket to both territories. 6, on balance, the general good of the territory proposed to be annexed will be served, and the benefits of the territory proposed to be annexed and the surrounding area will outweigh the detriments to the territory proposed to be annexed and the surrounding area should the annexation petition be granted. The record evidence and testimony to be presented today by the city show that this criterion is satisfied. The perspective of the City of Dublin as sole owner and petitioner provides the best evidence of the benefit to the territory to be annexed. Today, we have brought Senior Planner Chris Will, sitting to my left, to provide testimony that the annexation would benefit this territory by facilitating strategic development and the provision of municipal services. Finally, in considering a regular annexation, the proposed annexation cannot split a roadway or a highway unless the city attempting to annex has agreed to provide services to that split roadway. We can testify that there is no split here as the proposed territory ends at the southern right of way of State Route 161. Those are the criteria for approval. In support of those criteria, we have brought 2 witnesses today. And unless you have any questions as to the procedural nature of what I've sort of walked through, I'm happy to start calling them.
Go ahead and call your first witness.
Thanks, sir. Today we brought Senior Planner Chris Will and City Engineer Paul Hammersmith to provide testimony about future plans for the proposed annexed territory and the services that will be provided by the city to that territory. This testimony will demonstrate that the statutory requirements for annexation have been met, and that annexation into the city of Dublin will provide a benefit to the territory proposed to be annexed. This time, I'd like to call Senior Planner Chris Will to testify.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Very good. I believe you need to be sworn in, so if you'll stand. Right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Christopher Will.
Do swear to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Will. Could you please again state your position for us and how long you've been with the city of Dublin?
I am senior planner with the city and with the city for about 3 to 4 years.
I'm so sorry.
Absolutely, sorry. Christopher Will, I'm the senior planner with the city's Community Planning Development Division, and I've been with the city for about 3 or 4 years.
And could you testify to us as to your education and background in planning?
Yeah, so I have an undergraduate degree in city planning from the University of Cincinnati, a graduate degree in city and regional planning from the United States University, and I am a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've been practicing planning for about 15 years in both the public and private sector.
And in your role as senior planner for the city of Dublin, what is a general description of your job duties?
And so I help lead long-range planning and design with the city, creating small area plans, district plans, and coordinating planning and development with transportation, mobility, economic development, parks, and other city departments.
Are you familiar with the 79-acre territory proposed to be annexed to the city of Dublin?
I am,
Is Dublin the sole landowner within that property?
yes,
And is it Dublin's desire to annex the 79-acre property?
yes.
At this time, I've provided an electronic exhibit to Ms. Reese, who, by the way, has been excellent to work with, and she's a real credit to the county, and I appreciate what she's helped us out with on this. We have just an electronic copy. I had a printer malfunction this morning, but we'll be sure to provide hard copies to everyone at the conclusion of the hearing. Mr. Will, could you please provide a general description of future development plans for this proposed area? Feel free to use and refer to the slides as you go.
So future development in the city of Dublin is guided by our community plan, Envision Dublin. We recently updated this plan in the summer of last year after about a 1.5 year long community engagement led process. We're both members of residents and businesses in our community, as well as other stakeholders in a steering committee made up of businesses, other neighboring partners, jurisdictions, townships, Plain City. Were met with, as well as members of our school districts around the city to help shape this plan. A significant component of that plan is the future land use plan, which guides development at a high level based upon the uses in a balanced way, balancing residential and commercial development. We try to stick to this policy of the 60-40 development, so 60 residential, 40 commercial, industrial, or job producing uses. We have a lot of great neighborhoods and established areas in Dublin, Ballantrae, Muirfield, you think about those areas. But then we also have our business districts, like the West Innovation District, which this property is.
I'm sorry, like the what district?
West Innovation District, like this property would be a part of, that are really geared towards more economic development and job producing uses. Part of the future land use analysis is including transportation and mobility. We make sure we have our transportation needs met. So this also guides that, as well as a financial analysis that makes sure we're using smart land use policies and fiscal responsibility. As I mentioned, this area is within our West Innovation District, which is west of 33, south of State Route 161 for the most part. The goal of this innovation district is to create a world-class innovation district to really promote economic development, drive job growth in this area, but also create talent, partnering with Ohio University, Wexner, Dublin Methodist to kind of create talent that this area or region needs to help fuel that growth. The special area plan here, you kind of see the different land uses, focusing in a little bit more, the 3 black dash lines, Union County, Madison County, and Franklin County. We're really looking at, oh, sorry, next slide. I'm trying to connect on mine.
We're really looking at this where this green area is pointed, which is this flex innovation, industrial, and a mixed use type land use. If you can go one more slide, please. So these categories, mixed use, some of you might be familiar with Bridge Park in Dublin. This is not this. This is much of a smaller scale, thinking more commercial oriented. So retail, restaurants, maybe neighborhood offices. This land use does have some small scale residential, but this area being adjacent to rail, the city of Dublin tries to keep its economic development corridors like rail, highways, just for commercial or industrial job producing uses. So residential might not be appropriate in this area. But really, again, having those commercial uses that support jobs, employers, people going to work, they have places to get their services, dry cleaning, dental office, food on your lunch break. And then these other two categories, which are this flex innovation and industrial, thinking about clean manufacturing. Something that we talk about is medical devices, amputees, creating prosthetic limbs. That might be some type of clean manufacturing, R&D. We have Hadaka, which we point to as kind of an example of this land use in Dublin as well. But providing these spaces to really balance our economic development. We have a lot of office in Dublin. This is an area that allows us larger footprint. Again, this clean manufacturing, maybe light industrial areas, R&D space, and office as well in those pieces. So these are really the high level guiding pieces for what we have. Some specific projects that the city is studying. You may have heard of the potential rail corridor between Chicago and Columbus. If this were to happen, Dublin likes to be ahead of the game, make sure we have a plan in place in case it does come, so we're not reacting, we're being proactive. So this study is really just looking at the city-owned property around that station, how we use the future land use and the community plan to further shape that. So again, it's using the land uses that we talked about before, that mixed-use neighborhood, innovation and industrial around that with open space as well. Planning for future street connections that are needed to support future development, but again, to also make sure that we're allowing safe, efficient traffic throughout the area in this growing 161 corridor. Next slide, please. Something else that we're really excited about is the signature bike trail we're looking at, which would connect relatively this area into Madison County with Dari, Sports Ohio, OU, some of our other cities, parks and recreation, and destinations and shopping areas. And Dublin is really kind of this high quality trail that's a little different than other trails that we have in the city of Dublin. And this kind of just highlights the Dublin property that we were talking about here west within Madison County, straddling the rail line south of Hyattville. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. I have one question. Understanding Dublin, how Dublin partners and works with local school districts and all the various counties that it works with. Did you and City Manager O'Callaghan meet with Jonathan Alder officials?
We did last week.
And could you give us a summary of that discussion and what you perhaps presented to them?
Yep, so we presented a very similar deck of slides that talked about Envision Dublin and our community plan, specifically in the West Innovation District. We clarified with them what the city owns in this area. And then we talked about how we historically partnered with the school districts, specifically Dublin City Schools, Hilliard City Schools, which is also within the city of Dublin limits, to communicate and collaborate on any future development that comes into the city.
And how did they receive that conversation and presentation?
I think it was a very productive conversation. Again, information sharing, we're very transparent here in Dublin, so we're always happy to meet and take the time to meet with folks and kind of share our vision and our community's goals.
Thanks, Chris. I don't have any further questions for you at this time. If you have any questions, I'll move on to Mr. Hammersmith.
Yeah, I do. So thank you for your presentation. I'm a little surprised you brought in the conversation with that you made that part of the hearing, the conversation with the school officials, just because I figured that would be considered hearsay in a format like this. So you would know better than I, but as long as that was brought up, I spoke with some of the officials as well, and they testified to that being a positive meeting as well. Mr. Will, you did say that residential, I think your words were, might not be appropriate in this area. I think the school officials came away with the impression that there absolutely would not be residential in this area. So if you could speak to that.
Absolutely. So again, part of, the land use principle within the community plan or reserving areas along railroads or highways like State Drive 161, for commercial, industrial, job producing uses. This property is very adjacent to those, so that land use is also throughout the city, has other kind of mixed use node. Maybe if you go to the kind of first slide. So on the right, yep, up, one more. So. Right here, yeah. Thank you. So the map on the right, you can see kind of the fluorescent yellows and greens. There are kind of little brown, these mixed use nodes, throughout the community, which are activation areas. That land use is applied throughout the city, so each area has a different context where things may or may not be appropriate. The primary use really is that commercial and office serving. Where appropriate, residential might be considered. But since the city controls these properties, and again, we're using these for economic development purposes, we gain economic development through job producing uses. So that residential, that's why I say it might not be appropriate in something like this, so close to the railroad.
So it sounds like it's highly unlikely, but possible.
Yeah,
Is that fair to say?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can you speak more about the studies that have been commissioned for the railroad? I don't know, I'm curious what type of money you've invested in there. Can you speak to the feasibility, to what you see as the likelihood of that?
So again, that project is happening way above really the city. That's a state, federal level decision making that's happening. The city work is, so we're proactive and not being reactionary. So if this ever does happen. And again, it's technically adopted community plan, the land uses around that and seeing how that would fit with that. So the city has looked at different kind of bubbles of how that might play out, where a station might go in comparison to where other streets are at, what improvements might have to be made, so that we have future development here, of research, R&D, something comes in, that it's not too close to the railroad and they're gonna have to impact the building later on when they, Amtrak or whoever comes in to make any improvements.
Would you say that this is the primary motivation for the annexation?
The rail?
Yeah.
No, I think it's for economic development purposes.
Who would supply water and sewer to the area?
That might be a question best for the
Okay.
city engineer.
MKSK, right?
I was formerly in a former life with MKSK, so I've met a few of you in a different life and done work in Madison County as well with the trails and some other things.
Do you ever do, sorry,
Go ahead.
my question is gonna be, do you ever enter into joint economic development districts? Do you have any of those with other townships?
That's really outside my expertise, from that standpoint.
I guess my question was if that had at all been considered for this area, actually working with the township economic development.
With at least this rail study and anything that we're doing at that point is really focusing more on the land use transportation, parks and rec side of things. Again, we're always happy to partner with our neighbors, if not just to coordinate and collaborate on something at different levels of, that might be some type of economic activity. Or coordination, but at least we're communicating, kind of planning together for the future, especially on areas where there's multiple jurisdictions. 161 passes through a few different communities.
And prior to today's hearing, have you had meetings with Derby Township regarding their plans for this property?
Okay.
Okay.
I am not, I'm not.
When you said, it stops on 161, does that mean there won't be any access from 161 to this property?
So State Route 161 is controlled by ODOT. So I think they have really jurisdiction over that. So we of course coordinate with their ongoing study too and any other future plans to manage our access management. Similar, if you look at 161 closer to OU, there's a lot of access management there. So there's not driveways or curb cuts every so often. That's really controlled. Part of our special area planning kind of visioning out there is future streets that provide more access to these properties for development. So we can keep 161 to move transportation folks, traffic through that corridor.
The reason I asked that, it's already, fairly congested up in that area and it's a 2-lane road.
So Part of that too, as we talked about this transportation analysis with the community plan, areas that don't have development, we expect more roads to come in with them. If you could go to 2 more slides after this, please. Maybe 1. Or 1 more, yeah. You can maybe kind of see this as there's 161 to the north, it's labeled. But with future development, we see paralleling routes that helps to alleviate and distribute traffic throughout the district. So it's not all having to focus on 161 and overburden that roadway. So again, with future development, we would see future improvements, that being one of those. It's a new rail crossing that would connect the west to the east side and connect into where Ohio OC Wexner is, Dublin Methodist, again, to really distribute it so everybody doesn't have to go through Post Road, 6133, like I said, every day. I don't want to see that getting any worse either. But again, that's the stuff that we're thinking about when we do our future planning.
And you kind of alluded to the cross jurisdictional interest in this area. Obviously, the Franklin County, Union County, Madison County, Darby Township, Jerome Township, all being in this area. Do you intend to have conversations in the future with respect to your, development plan for this area?
Absolutely. We've always coordinate projects, get very transparent here. We're part of other regional planning areas, the 33 corridor planning, LUC, which is more Logan, Union, Champaign County regional planning, where we coordinate or share our future development or plans that come in with those groups that seek input from them as well, especially areas where we have neighbors or an edge condition.
And you may be aware that Darby Township is working on a project in this area we call the Madison Gateway Project. There's been great interest in that project. We're in Union County, Jerome Township, Marysville, Dublin, and everybody kind of wanting to know what Darby Township is doing. And so my concern is that we developed a lot of the east of the railroad track, I'll say, without any input from Madison County, from Darby Township, from Plain City. It seems to me that all those stakeholders were left out of the conversation when any sort of development occurred east of the railroad track. We weren't in any of those meetings, any of those conversations. We were never given a seat at the table. And now Dublin seems very interested in having a seat at Darby Township's table as they try to control development that's in Madison County. So you can assure me that you will work with Darby Township if this property is annexed?
I think that would be our intention. Again, Madison County is the new frontier for us, so we have engaged more our historic neighbors or partners, Union County, Jerome Township, folks within Franklin County and the school districts, because that's where we happened before. I guess this would be a new frontier and we would be partners together.
What do you anticipate?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Do you anticipate, will there be a larger area of Madison County that you're interested in, that Dublin's interested in? Would you like to continue this, what do you call it, West Innovation District, even further west of where it is now?
So that map kind of highlights the edge of where we see the West Innovation District occurring.
So you anticipate no further annexations in Madison County?
I don't, but as a planner, I don't make a lot of other policy decisions, I implement policy.
And why was it Darby Township, especially Darby Town, forget about us, but why wasn't Darby Township involved in these conversations before you guys decided to annex? I would think they would be the first ones that you would approach,
But I may defer to you, Jesse, on short of that.
I would say that I do believe that the city has had meetings with Darby Township about this. Generally, I certainly understand if Mr. Rule is not involved with those as the planner, but that's why he couldn't attest to it.
I believe Darby Township has met with Dublin, or maybe on one occasion, regarding the potential JED in the 161 area. It seems to me, at least from those conversations, that maybe Dublin was not interested in working with Darby Township on a JED for that 161 area, or maybe those conversations never materialized.
I wasn't a part of those, so I'm aware of that.
do you think that would have been an important part of this, to address the township before? Or are we just gonna do what we want, forget about what everybody else thinks that's adjacent to this area?
And we're always eager to hear folks' input.
But how are you gonna hear the input if you don't even address this?
It seems to me that would have been a natural partnership, right?
I mean, you know, it makes the perception that you're trying to hide something, which I know you're not. You know, you guys are very transparent, I'm sure. But to me, that would have been the first thing that I would have done.
I think from a planning level, maybe this didn't happen, but as Jesse maybe mentioned some other conversations that are part of the planning. Department.
So we don't get an answer on that.
Not for me, again, I wasn't aware of these.
Commissioner, what I would say, we did bring city manager O'Callaghan today, just in case the conversation sort of went a route that sort of was beyond, Chris's and my pay grade, frankly, and I'm happy to call her as witness if you'd like to have her testify about some of the meetings and discussions.
Well, I mean, I would if she can answer that simple question.
Sure. Yeah, happy to.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Yes.
We do, and we could like that.
Before you move on, there's another statutory party.
Excuse me, please give me your name.
My name's Nick Atkins,
Thank you.
County Prosecutor,
Thank you.
and I was suggesting to Mr. Champ, before we move on to another witness, we allow the necessary party to talk with him. That's good. Sure.
Yeah. Does Darby Township have any other questions for the witness?
Big testimony.
No
I'm
questions.
sorry, I don't have your name. I'm sorry.
Tom Spring, legal counsel for Darby Township,
Thank you.
here on your behalf.
And Darby Township has no questions for this witness, correct? Very good. We'll call our next witness, please.
Certainly, thanks, sir, and I will leave it up to you. We could go to Mr. Hammersmith to talk services, or if you prefer to go to city
Well,
manager.
since we're on that subject, and I would like an answer, I think
Sure.
maybe.
Absolutely, but we'll call, the city will call city manager Megan O'Callaghan.
Will please stand and raise your right hand. If you would repeat after me, I state your name.
I, Megan O'Callaghan.
Do swear to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. I think you were sitting here and heard the questions as to, potential past discussions with Darby Township as to this proposed annexation area, and the West Innovation District, and, are you able to talk to any of that?
I am. We first had an introductory meeting back in October, I believe, Marysville, held a meeting. It was held in Marysville with the city of Dublin and Darby Township representatives. I believe it was Holly and Tom and Myron participated in that meeting. So it's very introductory. We, introduced each other. We talked about our future plans. It was really a catch up on all things going on in this area kind of meeting. There was a commitment in that meeting to follow up. Holly was going to follow up, to schedule a subsequent meeting to include, Madison County representatives. That meeting took a little while to get on the books. I asked Paul Hammersmith to follow up to see if we could get that meeting on the books. I don't believe that meeting was scheduled until February. So at that time, 15 of us convened in Darby Township's offices. And once again, talked through Dublin's plans. Union County was present. I'm trying to remember, I wasn't prepared to talk about that exactly, but there were a lot of representatives at that meeting. David Kell, Rob Slane, Utilities Director for Marysville, myself, Planning Director. We walked through Dublin's community plan, shared future land use. We had those discussions, many of the slides that you saw today, all of that was shared in that meeting in February. The discussion ended up focusing, I believe, I recall, there's others in the room that were in that meeting. My recollection was the discussion ended up focusing on the development adjacent to this parcel, which would include dense housing. And that seemed to be the primary interest from Darby Township in that meeting, Union County, Madison County. And the discussion ended up focusing on that discussion and the potential impacts of that housing development in Madison County. We talked about infrastructure improvements that would be needed and the need to collaborate on the development that's occurring potentially in Dublin, Union County, Madison County, Plain City was present, I think. We also have to remind of that. So we talked about the importance of collaborating all along that corridor, being transparent, sharing information, what future impacts on the schools would be, as well as utility infrastructure and road improvements. And then following that meeting, ODOT has since convened regional meetings with all interested jurisdictional partners along the corridor. Those meetings are occurring monthly. And once again, everybody is sharing, all the jurisdictions are sharing their plans, sharing any development proposals that have been presented to the various jurisdictions. And there's a planning effort underway led by ODOT, to take a look at that corridor in terms of future transportation improvements that may be needed.
We talked a little bit about utilities infrastructure.
So I would suggest Paul Hammersmith is here to discuss utilities infrastructure. He would be the most appropriate representative to speak to that.
But you had no conversations with Marysville about supplying water and sewer in that area?
Paul would be the best to speak to that. Yeah, this area is complex in that there's multiple jurisdictions there, and it's a lot of an engineering capacity discussion. And our agreement with Columbus serves city of Dublin. There's a county line. So there's been lots of discussions between Plain City, Marysville, Dublin, Jerome Township, Darby Township. A lot of those discussions talk about and look at what's the most appropriate opportunity to serve that area.
And did you have any kind of one-on-one conversations with Darby Township regarding your participation in the JED agreement with Darby Township?
So my understanding of the meeting in February was going to be the JED idea would be discussed in that meeting. And instead that meeting ended up being discussing the development directly to the west and the potential impact on the schools and utility infrastructure and all of that.
So no.
I had various conversations with Madison County others, and I have heard that Darby Township or Madison County, there have been discussions with Plain City, Marysville, Hilliard even. But like I said, that February meeting, my impression of that meeting was to discuss the JED and the potential of the JED, and that conversation did not occur. We absolutely would have been.
There's been no subsequent.
Conversation.
There's been no subsequent direct conversation between Dublin and Darby Township regarding the JED along 161?
There have been collaborative meetings discussing all things going on in that area.
But no one-on-one meeting with Darby Township. That's all I think.
One-on-one, no.
Okay.
No, they have not requested us to be a party to those conversations.
Okay. And I asked this earlier, but I'll ask you as well. Is it truly the intent of Dublin to stop at this property and purchase no additional property in Madison County or annex any additional property in Madison County? Can you
So
speak to
I
that?
can speak to this property. So this property acquisition came to be as a result of negotiations with the previous property owner, Alan Shepard. We were negotiating the acquisition of Sports Ohio. During that negotiation process, that was our focus. During that negotiation process, Alan mentioned that there was other land that he was looking to sell. So that's where that negotiation led. So this land came on the market, came to be part of that negotiation, and that's what prompted our acquisition of this land. I don't know, I can't predict what other property owners may come to the city of Dublin in the future and ask or want to discuss Dublin.
So you may look to expand the West Innovation District further west. That's not out of the realm of possibility.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. I can't predict the future. Again, it's a lot of it's dependent upon the landowners. So I don't know what the landowners' wishes are going to be in the future. The best practice of planning, which Chris is more appropriate to speak to, is, we collaborate with Plain City, Madison County, Marysville. All of our future plans overlap essentially so that we're planning appropriately for the future, which is entirely dependent on property transactions in all of these areas in the future.
Do you see yourself in competition with Darby Township?
Absolutely. Competitive.
Well, so Darby Township, Darby Township has a lot of plans for this 161 corridor. They spent a lot of time putting together an overlay district, project that's called Madison Gateway. They've hired a planner, they've hired an attorney. Like Darby Township has put a lot of time and effort, I would say a year, 2 years, maybe more, of planning this 161 corridor. And I do think you're in direct competition. I do think you would like to acquire more land. I think you'd like to take that district further west. I think you are in direct competition with Darby Township. I think you believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't think you believe you're more sophisticated of a player than Darby Township and is better at planning, developing than Darby Township, and you see their trustees as a bunch of knuckle dragging hillbillies. That's what
All of the statements are in the.
Yeah, I would object to that on the record. That is pure speculation. We are, to be honest, we've been politely answering questions about this. I think we're far beyond the scope of criteria of what a regularization requires. Certainly, full disclosure, ready to
Yeah,
give information
we're
about.
happy to strike that from the record.
I would like to speak to that a little bit. We've had very productive and collaborative meetings with all of our partners in the region. We had a meeting most recently last Friday. Holly representatives, they did a great job participating in that meeting. Holly was actually one of the facilitators of the meeting. I came away from that meeting thinking very positively about the future of the region. We were all collaborative, we were all sharing, we all shared our priorities, we wrote our priorities on the wall. I viewed it as a great step in the next direction.
Would you say you had direct conversations? I mean, I know this is about utilities, but I think you have directly spoken to Marysville about the provision of water and sewer in this area.
So I talk to Marysville officials probably every other day about all sorts of things, because we have a great relationship along the 33 corridor.
Sure.
And that has taken decades to.
Well, we know you have a very good relationship with Marysville. We do not. But, we know, yeah. And so Mid-Ohio was negotiating for quite some time, and then maybe this would be better for the other witness, they were negotiating for quite some time, a deal with Marysville to provide water and sewer services along the 161 corridor. And, we negotiated that in good faith for nearly a year. And at the last moment, Marysville decided to not sign that agreement that was in writing and ready to be signed. And I think that's because of pressure from these other entities along the 161 corridor.
Okay, so what I can say about that is we were not involved in any of those negotiations. I was not aware of those negotiations. And I'm not sure what that has to do with this acreage that we're proposing to annex.
Well, it does, because it's all about water, annexation, JEDs, water, the provision of water and sewer utilities in this area. Because when I spoke to the city manager for Marysville, he told me, go talk to Dublin. I said, well, why don't we have a signed agreement? He told me to go talk to Dublin. So I had to go talk to Dublin, or was told to go talk to Dublin. I was told to go talk to Jerome Township. I was told to go talk to Union County, and it told me, only when you get their basically approval, will we consider this agreement that we've been negotiating in good faith for a month.
My understanding was that city manager of Marysville was requesting the regional collaboration to occur so that all stakeholders in the region are aware of the plans. I also understand that there's an agreement between Union County and Marysville that may come into play about the provision of utility service. But again, Dublin's not party to that, so I'm not exactly sure how this is.
Look, you see our frustration though. It is relevant somewhat because east of the railroad tracks, we were never brought in. We were never consulted. We were never discussed. We never were part of those meetings. All of a sudden, Darby Township wants to do a development. Now Darby Township has to basically get everybody's approval to do development in their own territory. That's the frustration. So now we have to have conversations with claims, Union County, Marysville, Dublin, Jerome Township, they all have to be supportive of our development in order to potentially get water and sewer service utilities, when we were never brought to the table for any discussion east of the railroad tracks about that development, what we thought, what we wanted to see. I don't think there was any collaborative nature for east of the railroad tracks. I'm a little concerned that there won't be a collaborative nature of these developments west of the railroad tracks either.
So what I can speak to is Dublin acquired this property from Alan Shepherd, along with Sports Ohio, along with Shepherd Excavating Parcels. Once we owned land in Madison County, we have been diligently engaging Madison County, Darby Township, and there have been a series of meetings since we acquired land. Prior to that acquisition, we did not own land. The city of Dublin did not own land in Madison County.
Sure.
We have been in Union County, Franklin County, Delaware County, and we have established relationships, established collaboration sessions with all of those entities. This is new territory for us, so we've been working hard to, get to know the schools, get to know Madison County, get to know Township. It takes time, we understand that. So that's what I can speak to.
Very good.
And I think you did
Yeah,
a
I have one question too. Your plan is very limited to housing, right?
Not at all.
Not at all, or did I misunderstand?
Not at
what you
all.
said? You said 60-20, or what did you say?
So that's the
broader community 60/40.
So for this particular piece of land,
So there's no specific plans for residential,
residential,
especially because it's city-owned property. We typically acquire property for economic development, and job producing.
gotcha.
Yeah, the focus of this land is on economic development, John, and since it's along the railroad tracks, we would not look to, council has a
So the
policy.
focus is on commercial type properties. Believe me, I'm not an expert in this subject, so I'm asking so I can learn, okay? So the primary focus here is for commercial property and not residential, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, but Darby Township's plan is more residential, right? So how would, I don't know that I would want a house next to a commercial property because of the things that commercial properties bring, more traffic, you know, maybe noise, you know, I don't know what kind of commercial you're gonna attract. But is that gonna interfere with Darby Township's plan to have more residential compared to what you want? You know, are people gonna be turned away from Darby Township, you know, wanting to live there because there's a whole bunch of commercial property right across the street? That's mine.
So future, been through Dublin, I'm sure you'll see we've got a lot of green edges, so we're very good about screening, parking, buildings. I mean, we have nice.
But once you get this, you're gonna do what you want. You're not gonna ask Darby Township, you know, would it be okay if we put 2 miles of screening there? You're not gonna do that. You're just gonna do what you think is right, and you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But what my problem here is that you're gonna put a commercial property primarily in that area. They want a residential piece of property across the street, right? And are they gonna be able to attract people to live there when there's a commercial property right across the street from them? That's, you know, I mean, that's a question, right?
It is.
It is, because then you're conflicting with what they want. And once you own the property, you're gonna do what you want. You're not gonna ask anybody. You're not gonna come here and say, hey, you know what? We're gonna do this and, you know, would you like to see some changes? And even if we said, here are the changes, you know, you don't have to do it. We lose total control over our county because of that.
So this line of questioning actually reminded me of a conversation that we had in one of those meetings with Darby Township, where we learned that we actually have some shared goals. I believe it was the Darby Township trustee that mentioned that they appreciate and like the looks of some of Dublin's boulevards with the green space,
By
the
far,
offset.
beautiful, no
So
doubt.
we definitely have that shared vision.
I'm not disagreeing with that because I've been through Dublin and it is a beautiful place. I'm not saying you won't, but once you gain control, you could really do what you want.
And you can see the vision of Dublin in our community.
I hope it continues, but there's no guarantee either.
I have one final question. So Callahan, you were called to the stand to speak to the conversations that have taken place and you've done that. If I'm not mistaken, the original parcel was purchased in 2021. I think there's 3 that comprise the 79 acres. I think the original was purchased in 2021 and then the final was, you know, this past October, I believe. So I'm shaking my head. I think that's correct. You mentioned the February meeting. Do you know when the discussions in Dublin around this annexation first occurred? Was it before or after the February meeting?
It would have been before.
Do you have an estimate of when those might have started?
Legal would probably be the best.
I'm asking, you're asking, repeat the question?
Your very last statement.
My question was, when the discussions in Dublin first began around the annexation. And I mentioned that in February, there was a meeting with local officials, and I asked if it was before or after. And you don't recall when that was. You think it was before?
It would have been before.
It was before, I'd say it was. So I'm also independently in the law department for Dublin, and we started working on sort of mapping out annexing a portion of Franklin County, and a portion of Madison at late last summer was when we started at least road mapping it through the legal world and how long it would take and how it needed to progress. So that was sort of our limited review of it.
So the previous acquisition that you would have been referencing from 2 years ago, that was Alan Shepherd's land as well as Orr. So those parcels were on the other side, they actually straddled the tracks on the
Yes.
other side of the tracks as well, and much of that land was in Franklin County. So we proceeded through the Franklin County annexation process to get in continuity of the land.
Very good. Darby Township, do you have any questions for this witness?
I do.
Okay.
Was legal notice that was submitted to Darby Township with the intent of annex first time that Darby Township was notified of the intent to annex?
I don't.
Okay,
I believe we discussed our future land use plans and acquisition all in that first October meeting, which you were president.
yes.
I didn't bring my notes from that meeting.
Again, I guess my question was at actual discussion of annexation.
We had October, we had February, again, we can show multiple attempts of reaching out between that October and February meeting to get that meeting scheduled sooner. Because as I mentioned, the conclusion of that meeting in October was that Holly was gonna follow up and get that meeting scheduled. One or two went by, I inquired, I asked Paul to follow up. And then that meeting ultimately ended up landing in February.
Testimony, I'm sorry, I don't have your name.
Yeah, you're gonna be called as a witness, so you'll have ample time. Don't worry. We'll get you on the record here soon.
Do you recall any discussion with Darby Township about opportunities to share, about sharing opportunities or revenue opportunities on this 79 acre?
So there was the initial discussion that occurred in October. I'm gonna keep mentioning that October and February, and I don't even have my calendar in front of me to know if those the exact dates. There was the initial discussion in October, and then there was the follow-up meeting in February.
Has Dublin had conversations with other landowners about additional purchases?
I have not. Over the years, perhaps there have been. I don't have any discussions occurring right now.
Given conversations about future partnerships or collaboration, and again, I will say these meetings, this is annexation premature. In other words, if the development curve prior to annexation, Dublin has a land, Dublin can deal with it, its wishes can, as long as it complies with zoning.
I do not believe it's premature.
I'm sorry, I do not what?
I do not believe it's premature.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
I just have one follow-up off of those questions. Has, since the February meeting, has Darby Township reached out to Dublin at all to discuss opportunities?
Not that I'm aware.
Thank you.
One question. Your planning documents include what's available online includes some planning information for this property that we're discussing today. Do you have any planning documents that would show anything west of these properties down 161 corridor, comprehensive land use plan, anything like that? Or is it
Geodesics of the comprehensive plan.
the Dublin comprehensive plan? That's what I'm looking
That's
for.
all, we're going to copy. But that's all the plan there is.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, prior to embarking on the update of our community plans, one of the first things you do is establish the boundaries of the planning area. And in establishing the boundaries, you could speak to this better than I, but in establishing the boundaries, we reached out to our planning staff.
So it's typical of comprehensive planning to do a little bubble around your edges because it's a way to communicate kind of your expectation with your neighbors. Development patterns don't care if you're living here and there's a line and what's going on there. It's what you see. So it helps kind of communicate that. So it's the same in the city of Columbus, Jerome Township or all around our edges, we do that. Likewise with our transportation network, we show some roads kind of connecting out because again, you drive from Plant City to Dublin to Columbus, roads don't stop at jurisdictional boundaries. So kind of set that expectation to make sure we're making logical connection points and we do our best to kind of line this up with other folks or coordinate with other jurisdictions to think about the future street network. That we don't mean those are going to be our roads, but just that there needs to be a connection to support future development to make sure transportation can function properly.
So are you saying your comprehensive land use plan boundary stops at this property that you are petitioning for annexation, or does it go farther west?
So we'll say the future land use plan, which again shows these goes beyond this, but it goes into areas that are already incorporated in the city of Columbus.
Sure.
Already developed areas. So it doesn't mean that that's where we're headed, just as that's kind of how we see that development pattern happening in the future.
It's a possibility.
And it's to envision how roads and utilities and things like that could potentially interface in the future. Similar to the significant overlap between Marysville's planning area and our planning area because they have utilities all the way up.
More experience with the comprehensive land use plans of municipalities, they expand past their jurisdictional boundaries. We're in a unique situation, well, unique and as in 88 other counties, but you know, we have our comprehensive land use plan. It never extends past that county boundaries. So it's always good to have that information, specifically when we're discussing this property today. That's big petition for annexation, you know, what that looks like from your perspective, how you would like to see that property develop. And I'm going to say that, I mean, west of this property down the 161 corridor. So if you have an opportunity, and you may have already sent this to me, but if you could shoot that over to me or give me the link to it.
Yeah.
Just so we can, I can have for reference.
I believe through the meetings that have been occurring between our economic development directors, Jason Sanford, David Kell, Jeremiah, there's been a lot of information sharing between those three over the past few months. So we have, all of this is on our website, so.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Public information.
And maybe I just haven't got to it in this document at this point, but.
And as you know, the development potential on that corridor is highly dependent upon property owners.
Absolutely.
So we receive inquiries from property owners on a routine basis in Dublin, outside of Dublin. Is there any interest in acquiring our land? That's initiated
Property.
by the property owners. And then we evaluate the opportunity and determine whether to.
Just to piggyback on the question from the gentleman behind you, that represents Darby Township, just to piggyback on that. You own the land. Would Dublin consider, you know, maybe engaging Madison County, Darby Township to pursue your endeavor without annexation?
I think it's been the policy of Dublin to annex before they develop so that they maintain control of the land.
So the answer would be no.
I would say that's an accurate statement. We want, before we make any investment in the area or work on future plans, of which currently there aren't anything concrete, we want to have it within the boundaries.
The reason I asked that question is because, you know, we would be we would be in the table then, and we could work together to develop this area and still keep it Madison County rather than Dublin.
It will be Madison County. I mean,
It's gonna be under Dublin's control.
which we own it.
I
So
get it. So
That's why I'm not sure the difference with it being we own the land
you do.
and
do.
have control.
You do, I agree with that, but at least there would be collaboration between Madison County and Dublin. But right now, there isn't any, it's just, you annex, you do as you please, we have very little say-so in anything that happens.
So like I said, we had great meeting last Friday and I'm hopeful that we all agreed that those meetings should continue into the future, probably on a monthly basis. I thought that meeting was productive. I don't know what others have shared from that meeting. Maybe there were different takeaways, but I thought that meeting was very productive and then very hopeful of the relationships in the future.
Well, thank you.
And if I could ask to follow up just to that point, do you meet routinely with Union County, Franklin County, and Delaware County?
All the time, all the time.
We good? Any other questions for this witness? Okay,
Excellent.
call your note. Next witness, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's call, Paul Hammersmith, the city engineer.
Raise your right hand, sir. Repeat after me. I state your name.
Paul A. Hammersmith.
Do swear to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Could you please, state your position, background, and education?
I am the Director of Engineering for the City of Dublin, / city engineer. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree from the Ohio State University and from 1985. I have been employed by the City of Dublin since January of 2000.
Thank you, sir. And what's the general description of your job duties as the city engineer?
As a city engineer, I'm responsible for implementation of our capital improvements program, our 5-year capital improvements program. We have a group that is in charge of capital projects. We also have utilities and stormwater management, utilities being water distribution, sanitary sewer collection systems that are within the city of Dublin. And then we also have a group that works in development, residential and commercial development, working with our planners and building standards as new developments occur within the city of Dublin, make sure that they comply with our stormwater management regulations and our development standards. And then additionally, we work very closely, the Division of Engineering staff does with our planners, and then also transportation and mobility as transportation improvements occur within the city of Dublin.
Thanks, sir. Are you familiar with the 79-acre territory proposed to be annexed?
I am.
On balance, in relative size, how does the 79-acre territory compare to the rest of the city of Dublin?
The city of Dublin is composed of about 25 square miles of land, which equates to just over 16,000 acres. This being 79 acres is about 0.5% of that total land that's currently within our corporate limits.
And are you familiar with the services resolution adopted by the city on May 22nd, 2025?
I am.
I have previously marked that as Exhibit C. Just gonna hand that over if you have it. That's great. Could you please recount for us those services?
Yeah, the services that the city will provide will be water, sanitary sewer, refuse, police, fire, and road maintenance.
And is Dublin able to provide all of those services?
Yes.
And can you confirm that no portion of this annexation creates a divided roadway that would require Dublin to perform maintenance?
It does not.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any further questions.
Yeah, who would supply the water and sewer?
The water and sewer will be provided through our service agreements that we have with the city of Columbus, which were just recently updated. The original agreements dated back to 1992, I believe, and have been updated just recently. So we will work with them to, as this area is annexed, to expand that service area within the confines of those agreements.
Any other questions? Township, do you have any questions? Very good.
Thank you. We don't have any further witnesses. I'll certainly have a closing statement, but we'll stand aside for the topic now.
Very good. Yep, Township.
Where would you like us to consider?
Yeah. Switch. Yeah, switch seats. That's
Perfect.
Do a quick switch.
I moved in. Sorry. Thank you.
So it shows, so we have some materials shared with council for Dublin for the board commissioners.
Very good.
Please, as the board, my name is Thomas Spring, I'm attorney for Darby Township in this matter. Having with us today, Myron Mask, Darby Township trustee, and Pauline Manning, the township planner. And I have
Chief Brian Adams of the Pleasant Valley Joint Fire District. This was a district that was created years ago with the collaboration of Darby Township and other communities in the northern part of Madison and southern Union counties. And through that collaboration, Darby Township provides fire and EMS for Darby Township. In the interest of disclosure, we note that some 20 years ago, I was township administrator for Washington Township, helped them in building 2 fire stations, 92 and 95. And Holly Manning was a planner at that time in the city of Dublin. So 2 of us have some familiarity, although it's been years ago, with the city of Dublin and Washington Township. Vice Code section 709.033 provides that after hearing on petition for annexation, the Board of County Commissioners shall enter upon its journal a resolution granting the annexation that confines based on preponderance of the substantial, reliable, and probative evidence on the whole record that 6 criteria have to be met. Criteria 5, which has to be met, states on balance for general good of the territory proposed to be annexed will be served, and the benefits to the territory proposed to be annexed in the surrounding area will outweigh the detriments to the territory proposed to be annexed in the surrounding area if the annexation petition is granted. As used in Division 85 of this section, the surrounding area means the territory within the unincorporated area of any township located 1/2 mile or less within the territory proposed to be annexed. The land proposed for annexation is currently located in Darby Township, Madison County, and the Pleasant Valley Joint Fire District. Darby Township used 3 different distance calculation methods available online to calculate the travel distance and time to nearby fire stations, specifically the Pleasant Valley Joint Fire District Station at 650 West Main Street, which is Highway 161, and Washington Township Station 91, which is at 6255 Shire Range Road. The results of that research shows that Pleasant Valley is the nearest station to the land proposed for the annexation today on 161. And in contrast, travel from Washington Township Station 91 would involve driving on additional roads just to get to 161 and go through 2 roundabouts to get to the annexed territory. So on the first item, you have a map showing the location of those 2 fire stations, and in the middle, the gray circle with a white dot is the address of one of the parcels of land that's proposed to be annexed. And following it is a kind of a rundown of 3 different metrics that we obtained to look at approximate travel times. And I want to just say up front, this does not equate to response times. And the chief is here, he can address that matter at the perfect time of what constitutes a response time. The data indicates that Pleasant Valley is less than 4 miles from the territory to be annexed. Washington Township is approximately 4.1 miles from the territory to be annexed. The data projects travel time of approximately 6 to 8 minutes from Pleasant Valley to the annexation address of 10175 State Route 161 Plain City, and approximately 8 to 9 minutes from Washington Township Station 91 to the same address, depending on the direction website that you look at. Also close to 2 articles, research articles that were published in professional journals last year and this year. One article is called Professionalizing Emergency Medical Service Response Time. This was published in the Emergency Health Services Journal, pages 37 to 41, of July and December 2024. The abstract of that article notes the following: prompt responses by emergency medical services are crucial for delivering efficient pre-hospital emergency treatment. The prompt arrival of EMS is strongly correlated with improved patient outcomes and increased chances of survival. To reduce the occurrence of long-term impairment or illness, the majority of EMS companies follow globally acknowledged response time benchmarks. Internationally, EMSs strive to achieve a response time of 8 minutes or less for 90% of all current incidents.
This research examines many variables that influence EMS response times and their subsequent consequences on patient outcomes. The measurement of response time starts with receipt of clinical complaint call and concludes upon the arrival of EMS at the site. Timely, effective reactions are essential for the survival of patients, particularly in urgent medical situations. In contrast, there are data indicating that longer reaction times are associated with increased death rates. Various obstacles might hinder prompt EMS responses, including geographical obstacles, unfavorable weather and traffic conditions, and patient-specific considerations, such as the kind of injury or sickness, medical history, age, and gender. If travel time alone is 8 to 9 minutes in Washington Township, ideal traffic and weather situations, then the data suggests that Pleasant Valley has the best prospect for timely service for patients, including those with severe injuries or sickness, including cardiac events. This article describes the goal of response time of 8 minutes or less. Response time involves more than travel. Research published in the Archives of Academic Emergency Medicine in February of this year studied the impact of response times on people with cardiac arrest. This article is titled Effects of Emergency Medical Response Time on Survival Rate of Out-of-Hospital Cardiac Arrest Patients, a 5-year retrospective study. The results section of that study notes that there were 5,433 patients, and the research team found that 29.17% achieved return to spontaneous circulation of the scene, 6.9% arrived to ED, and 1% survived a hospital discharge. Each 1 minute increase in response time decreased the likelihood of survival by 6%, survival to ED admission by 4%, and survival to hospital discharge by 6%. Response times under 8 minutes significantly improved outcomes, with survival to scenes increasing by 2.31 times, survival to ED by 1.76 times, and survival to hospital discharge by 2.09 times. The conclusion section of this article states, in part, a maximum response time of 8 minutes significantly enhances survival outcomes, including survival at the scene, survival to ED, and survival to hospital discharge. Furthermore, each 1 minute increase in response time is associated with a 6% reduction in the likelihood of survival to hospital discharge. Here are the data from the 3 website providers indicate that Pleasant Valley is the closest fire station, and the travel times are shorter than the times to Washington Township's Station 91. The data suggests that the proposed annexation and conforming of township boundaries would result in longer response times, or at least travel times. I'll let the chief address the response times. But that annexation and conforming township boundaries could result in longer times for fire and EMS help to arrive at the scene. Brian Adams, the chief of the Pleasant Valley Fire Department, can address the department's operations, staffing of paramedics, providing advanced life support and emergency response. Holly Manning talked about the planning picture for Darby Township, some of the conversations, and then we have Myron Madison Township, New York City. Dublin City Council has already passed Services Ordinance 34-25, which was included in filings County Commissioner's Office. Section 1E notes fire will be provided upon completion of the boundary adjustment provision upon annexation. Fire services will be provided by Washington Township. And Council for Dublin noted that Dublin had an alternative method of providing an annexation petition that was through the 709.16 municipal annexation, whereby the land remains in the township of origin. So we are aware generally of the reasons that led to the city's decision decades ago to adjust its boundaries of Delaware County so that Washington Township can provide better emergency medical services than Concord Township was providing in the Muirfield area of the city, including delays in response time or longer response times. Washington Township constructed a fire station on Grand Road east of Muirfield Drive to provide those services. And I actually worked with Jay Antonopoulos, who had been a Concord Township trustee. And when the Supreme Court of Ohio ruled that the Delaware County Commissioners had to grant the annexation petition, she was out of a job. She ran from Washington Township and got elected trustee there. And I had the great honor to work for her. It is laudable for the city of Dublin to want standardized fire and emergency medical services within city boundaries. However, when there are full-time professionals who are closer from Pleasant Valley that provides services that make sense to better protect human health and life and property. Or to act and take actions to do that. And I believe the chief is going to talk about their paramedics and their advanced life support programs. The shorter travel distance of Pleasant Valley supports the premise that Pleasant Valley has a more ideal window of time to facilitate treatment that may potentially provide more positive medical outcomes for people who may be visiting or working in that area proposed for this annexation. If this annexation is approved and the boundaries are subsequently adjusted so that the Darby Township portion would become Washington Township, then Madison County could well be looking at slower response times for this part of your county. If mutual aid is relied upon because Pleasant Valley Fire District is closer than Washington Township Fire, but Pleasant Valley could be running to the annexed territory without the real estate taxes to support those runs. Because the territory proposed for annexation is in Madison County, and with residential and business development expected along 161 in Darby Township, it could well be that Madison County and Darby Township residents could be visiting and working in the annexation territory and could be affected by the differences in emergency response times. Darby Township respectfully requests that this board deny the annexation on the grounds that the criterion criterion 5 in the statute shows there's a negative impact on public safety in the form of fire and EMS response times and potential health and medical outcomes to the area. And this creates a situation where the detriment outweighs the benefit to the territory, and there could be alternatives to provide for the best response time. And I guess you could look at it as if you're having a heart attack, do you care whose name is on the side of the responding vehicle, as long as it's fastest one to get there? That includes my own parts. I have Chief Adams here. Chief, could you state your name and tell us about your education experience?
Well, it's first, yeah, this is your first witness?
Yeah. What's swear of it?
Yep. This is your first witness. If you raise your right hand, sir, repeat after me. I state your name.
Brian Adams.
Do swear to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I did.
Thank you, sir.
Chief Adams, can you tell us about your educational experience?
So Brian Adams, Fire Chief for Pleasant Valley, which is a joint fire district that provides services to Darby Township, Madison County, Kane Township, and Madison County, the Village of Plain City, the Village of Unionville Center and Union County, and a portion of Darby Township and Union County. My background with the fire district, I've been with the fire district since 2019. Initially as the fire marshal, and then was appointed to the chief's position in March of this year. Previous to that, I worked for the City of Dayton Fire Department. Previous to that, I was with the City of Fairborn, just outside of Dayton. So 25 years in the fire service, Bachelor of Science in Fire and Safety Engineering at the University of Cincinnati. So that's.
Can you tell us about how Pleasant Valley staffs the department, what requirements you have to be full-time employee at Pleasant Valley?
So currently, the fire district, it's a combination department, similar to many jurisdictions, central Ohio, where we're staffed with full-time and part-time staff. Full-time representing 5 of our 7 daily staff positions, with part-time supplementing those daily staffed positions. Training requirements for full-time firefighters are that they be state certified, level 2 firefighters as well as paramedic certified through the state of Ohio. And for our part-time staff, state certified level 2 firefighters at a minimum of the basic certification level as far as EMS, with a large majority of our part-time staff being paramedic certified also.
Can you tell us about your department in terms of the apparatus, medics, the kinds of services that you provide?
Certainly. So on technical service, fire and EMS department, daily staffing provides services through 2 medic units out of Station 261, which is on West Main Street in Plain City, as well as an engine rescue unit, rescue components, extrication, auto extrication, different multiples of disciplines of rescue equipment that's staffed daily. So 2 medics, 1 engine rescue, as well as a battalion chief, which is the supervisor for the crew making up those 7 individuals. And then depending on the type of call for service, we also provide service with a grass vehicle for grass and field fires, which are pretty common here in Madison County, Indian County both, as well as a tanker, a truck carrying water, again, in the areas of the township, areas of the fire district that don't have municipal water service.
Can you tell us what advanced life support is?
So in Ohio, essentially there are 3 different 3 primary certification levels for emergency medical services. EMTs, or emergency medical technician basics, are just that, right? So they have the ability to provide basic first aid and medical needs for individuals that are injured or ill, but they're limited in their practice. The state of Ohio also has an EMT intermediate certification, which has additional capabilities and ability to start IVs, but again, they're still limited in their actions that they can take. And then paramedics in the state of Ohio is kind of the gold standard for EMS care in the state, across the country. So having the ability to do all the basic tasks, but at the same time have the ability to intubate or control airways for people that aren't breathing, a multitude of medications that can be provided for injuries, illnesses, heart problems, seizures, any number of issues, as well as the ability to collect and interpret EKGs or electrocardiogram images of the heart and diagnose and treat circumstances that happen in the field on scene and during transport to the hospital. So that's kind of your 3 levels of service. Like I said, for Pleasant Valley, we have a certain, I don't have the exact number of part-time staff that are at the EMT basic level. All of our full-time staff, as well as the majority of our part-time staff, are paramedic certified. Again, we want to be able to provide that service available. And as an incentive or benefit to our part-time employees, we also cover the tuition for our part-time staff to get the paramedic certification. Again, because we recognize the benefit of that.
So to be clear, paramedics provide advanced life support in this year.
That is correct. So, and I apologize, advanced life support is just that. So medication administration, being able to interpret your heart rhythms, being able to medicate and intubate and ventilate patients, that would kind of be the level of service that's provided with an advanced life support compared to basic life support, which is essentially, bandaging wounds, things like that, controlling bleeding, more basic actions.
Can you discuss what goes into what constitutes a response time? If you were to define response time.
So with response time, all or the majority of fire departments
across the nation. I think you mentioned, some of the studies, in some of the studies, response times, travel times, to incidents, there are national standards. NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, has a standard which is 1710 is the number of the standard, but it basically guides departments. And again, we're not unique in the sense that we attempt, or we strive to follow the guidelines of the NFPA standards. Response time generally is looked at as that point in time to be notified of the alarm, have the ability to get to the vehicles and start the response to that alarm. That response time is going to be added to any travel time, obviously, that result as a part of getting to the instance. So that includes, again, working a 24-hour shift. Response times varies. Again, Pleasant Valley is not unique from every other fire department, and that working a 24-hour shift. If the firefighters are asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, that response time is going to be slightly longer than at 11:26 in the morning, where they're sitting many times next to the trucks, where it's almost an immediate or negligible response time. But consistently striving to keep those response times under 90 seconds at the most. Again, regardless of the time, typically we're faster than that. That all your questions?
I think so.
Council, do you have any questions?
I do. Thanks, Commissioner. Chief, sorry, I'm behind you.
So you're fine.
Question, how many firefighters does Pleasant Valley have, either full-time, part-time, or a combination of both?
So a combination of both. Currently, our full-time staffing is 19 full-time employees, and then part-time staff varies as every department varies. But generally, we're around 35 part-time staff members. And operating out of the one fire station on Main Street.
Okay, thank you. How many square miles does the Pleasant Valley Fire District cover?
Roughly 82 square miles.
Okay. Is it, in fact, is it possible perhaps that if this 79-acre territory were to be removed from your jurisdiction, it would potentially increase your response time to other calls in other areas of the district because of the reduced territory?
So that's the again, I'm sorry.
On the front, if this 79-acre territory is removed from your jurisdiction and placed in Washington Townships, would that not increase the possibility that you could increase response time to other areas of your territory because you have 79 acres less to cover?
Improve response time?
Yes.
Okay. Yes and no. So I also did some research again, just understanding fire departments and again, it's similar to the discussion on planning for communities. We also cross jurisdictions for emergency responses. We're I don't want to say routinely. I grabbed the numbers just to check. Within that area of Dublin, Washington Township, so Cosgrave, Hoosier, that area. In the past year, we responded there since June of last year, so approximately 18 months, 66 times. So it's hard to say.
Sure.
Obviously, if you're taking response areas away, then that's less demand.
Sure.
However, we're currently also supplementing what's not in our jurisdiction, but already in that area. Short of EMS transports, obviously, property tax funding is a portion of our funding for the fire district. But EMS or ambulance billing for insurance companies is also a portion. We're not compensated for any of those responses outside of our jurisdiction, other than if there were EMS transport billing revenues generated. So it's hard to, I can't definitively say yes, it would reduce it.
Okay, but it certainly could. It's particularly in light of the sheer size of the area you need to cover, which is what what did you say, 82 square miles roughly?
Correct.
Okay.
It is possible, but I mean, it would likely, based on history and current situation, we would, even if it were taken out of our jurisdiction, we wouldn't receive the revenue from it, but would still be responded in that area.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. I don't have any further questions, for the witness commissioners. I do, we also brought Eric Richter, who's Washington Township Administrator. Would call him on rebuttal testimony to some of this, which didn't anticipate the fire department, angle, but he could attest to, the number of firefighters Washington Township has, and the square mileage they have to cover in their belief based on their ISO rating and, services that they can provide this without any detriment to the residents.
thank you. I might add one other item, I don't think Mr. Spring, mentioned, just based on this property and Madison County in general with regard to our responses. There's a giant railroad track that kind of separates the two, fire trucks can't go across railroads, if the train's there. So, any of those, and we deal with the same issue, responding, eastward, I'm sorry. So again, I know that it's, commonly, I'll say, vented about through social media forums and elsewhere, the difficulty, especially in Union County, with trains occupying the tracks and not being able to travel. Again, I mean, for this property and everything that's in Madison County requiring service, obviously that would be an obstacle that you wouldn't be presenting.
Any other questions for Chief? You would call your next witness, please.
I'd like to call Holly Manning.
Very good. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Holly Nutty.
Do swear to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you please discuss your education experience?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree from Miami University of Ohio in geography, urban planning, and then also a master's degree from Ohio State University in city and regional planning.
Yes.
In my experience, I have over almost 25 years of planning experience. Over 20 of those were in the public sector. And the last 5 or so years have been in the private sector with my own business, representing various communities.
Hey, can you tell us a little bit about your work with counties, townships, and the city of Dublin?
Yeah, so of 16 years of my experience has been with Fairfield County. I served as their planning director, the regional planning commission director, for 9 of those years. And I'm very familiar with how counties, townships, and municipalities all interface with each other. And then as you have mentioned previously, I have worked with Dublin in my first initial steps in my career. As far as Derby Township, I came on board with Derby Township about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And was brought on board to help them with their planning aspects along the 161 corridor, due to development pressures along the corridor. And that's my capacity in my business with Prosperous.
And as part of that planning effort to work with the township on annexation pressures.
Yes, it is. There's annexation pressures from multiple directions and helping the township navigate through the pressures they're feeling from all of those different entities.
Holly, can you talk a little bit about your planning effort with Darby Township?
Yeah.
And some of your meetings, things.
Sure. So we have, our firm has worked with Darby Township and Madison County. We've worked very well together as a partnership with the county, because the county holds the zoning for the township. There is no township zoning. So when the township first realized all of its development pressures and the potential of annexations from the different directions last year, they started reaching out to Madison County and asking, how can we be a part of this conversation? And at that point in time, they did hire me to help navigate through that process. And I have worked closely with your planning staff, with David Kell at Economic Development, and with Rob Slane as your county administrator to help identify and plan the different and various uses along that corridor, the types of infrastructure improvements that would be needed, and to work with the planning staff to implement zoning for the corridor that was adopted last year. During those conversations, I did start talking with the township about various opportunities for revenue generation and revenue sharing. As I have worked through these various communities throughout the Central Ohio region, partnerships are becoming more and more of a common theme that we are seeing between counties and townships and cities, and working together in a proactive manner. And so started to talk to them about different ways that they could approach this corridor and work collaboratively with the different communities. We started to reach out to different communities to talk about different efforts. I will, mention that we did meet with Dublin, as the city manager mentioned. Don't remember the specific dates. I'm gonna say fall and winter. We met in the fall, specifically because we went to the city of Marysville. We went to city of Marysville to talk to them about potential revenue sharing opportunities with the city. And they said, let's talk with the city of Dublin, because we feel like this area is a collaboration of various entities. So we agreed, and we met with Dublin at Marysville's office to talk with them. We walked out of that meeting not feeling that Dublin really wanted to participate at that time on any type of collaboration in a revenue sharing way. We did meet again in the winter, probably early this year, to talk about the 161 corridor again. At that meeting, it was more of a presentation of Dublin, letting us know what their plans were for the corridor. That was pretty much the focus of that meeting. I think one of the questions that was asked was, when was the annexation for this 79 acres contemplated by the city? I think the answer during the testimony was last summer. And it was never, during those two meetings, provided to us the information that this 79 acres was going to be annexed. We were only given broad plans of long-term vision. So we never felt an urgency to continue those conversations in an urgent manner. So I think that's very important to understand that timeline. The other part of this that I want to speak to as well is that Jamie Green from Planning Next reached out to me very recently and said we should maybe have a collaborative talk with all of these communities. And that's the meeting that the city manager mentioned took place this last Friday. And I think that it's important that we mention that, because I do believe that there were some positive conversations that came out of that, but it's not aligning with what we're seeing here today. We came out of that meeting thinking that we were going to have a proactive, a collaborative conversation going forward. But here we are with 79 acres that are being requested to be annexed into the city's conform boundaries and have no revenue sharing generation or collaboration with the township once it's annexed. So would a potential partnership in the future maybe work? Would there be continued conversations that could happen about how we could partner and collaborate, how we could share fire services, how we could share revenue, how we could get utilities to this area in a collaborative way? Perhaps there is, and perhaps we still need to go down that path. That's why I believe it's premature that this is happening. I think that we need to have continued conversations and we need to understand the benefits to this region as a whole, this corridor as a whole, and not just a piece of 79 acres that is going to sit in a silo by itself. Even if we continue on with the conversations with the rest of the corridor, we want to look at it as a whole and not silo these out, so.
Do you have any other questions, Sam?
I just have one question. You mentioned that you came away from the fall meeting with the sense that Dublin was not interested in a revenue sharing agreement. Can you explain why? Was it explicitly stated or?
Stated, it was a feeling that we had as we walked out. There was, nothing specifically stated, yes, no. When we left, we were standing in front of the building, talking as our team, the three of us, Tom and Myra and myself, and city manager and city engineer left out a back door and just quietly waved and didn't come up and offer like, oh, it was great seeing you today. It was a great conversation. We look forward to continued conversations. There was none of that. It was just back and left. So that just the initial feel wasn't there for us.
Holly, do you call, not getting into specific, Derby Township and in your involvement at meetings of various political subdivisions?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear all of your question.
I'm sorry.
Could you restate the question?
Sure.
As Derby Township?
In your experience with Derby Township, has the township been involved in discussions of various political subdivisions?
Yes, we have talked to a number of different
Okay. And in your experience in Derby Township and elsewhere, townships and other political subdivisions, do you get a sense of things from, maybe the best word I can describe is a vibe in terms of how open and receptive the community might be to entertaining a dialogue on collaboration?
Yes, very much so. The experience that I have with, working with other communities, I've worked with New Albany and Jersey Township on the cooperative economic development agreement that they created. And we get that sense of cooperation when we were in those conversations. I've working with the city of Columbus on another deal with Harlem Township and city of Columbus actually came to a Harlem Township trustee meeting and sat at a public meeting on the record and talked about how they wanted to collaborate, create a non-annexation agreement and service agreements, shared revenue with the township. So I have experience with how other communities have collaboratively given that positive feedback to communities, and I just haven't experienced that yet with Dublin. I do say that Friday was a much better meeting than what we've experienced in the past. So going forward, maybe there is something, but with this 79 acres being considered today, with what we've had up to this point, I don't feel that collaboration has matured enough to get to where we are today.
Speaking on those conversations with other political subdivisions, I know you've spoken with, Plain City, London, Hilliard regarding a potential JED partnership. They've been open to at least considering what you had to say. Would you feel they were more considerate of your proposal and willing to have conversations regarding being a JED partner, even if they ultimately decided not to? And did you get that same feeling with Dublin, that they were open to that conversation?
Yeah, we've had numerous conversations, and yes, I believe the conversations actually got into what would those services look like, what are the potential partnerships, and we never had that conversation.
And was that of your doing or Dublin's doing?
I think that's just a doing of, we just didn't feel that conversation developed to those levels.
You didn't think they were interested?
Yeah.
Questions? Counselor?
Thank you, Commissioner. I would just like to register an objection to sort of the inclusion of how other cities feel and how they approach JED agreements with townships, just on the basis of hearsay that they aren't here to talk about it. But in keeping with that, in registering that objection, I would say, Holly, thank you for your time. Did you, on behalf of Derby Township, ask Marysville if they wanted to participate in a JED?
Yes,
Did you ask Plain City if they wanted to participate in a JED?
yes,
Did you ask Hilliard if they wanted to participate in a JED?
yes.
Did you ask Dublin if they wanted to participate in a JED?
I believe that we did at that meeting. I believe that we talked about it at that meeting.
And it was explicitly asked of Dublin.
I don't recall if we specifically used the term JED at that meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
One other, I understand you had a meeting last Friday that you characterized as generally positive. Did you raise any of the concerns that you have raised here today at that meeting?
Yes.
In what manner?
There was a conversation about the JED. And, there was conversations between, Dublin, and Plain City and Darby Township about the, intent or not, the intent or the not interested in being part of a JED. There was conversation that happened between the three entities. At that point in time, the meeting went from being a positive meeting to being more tense. And as facilitators, we pulled that back.
Good. Any other questions, sir?
No, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Tom, if you'd like to call your next witness.
Oh, my name is Madison.
Would please stand. Answer. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Myron Mass,
Do swear to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do,
Okay, very good. Thank you, Myron.
If you state how many years you served as council trustee
I'm in my 5th year.
in your occupation,
My occupation outside of, being a trustee is pastoral care.
can you tell us a little bit about Darby Township's approach to development matters and really the subject of collaboration? Is there a philosophy that Darby Township has in terms of how it works in the communities?
Really, it was learning right on the run. In 2020, when I came on board, there was no discussion, we had no knowledge of a Madison gateway. And we didn't realize what all was happening, what all was going on. We did hear rumblings, but, we weren't really prepared like we could have been or should have been. But that's where, bringing, you as an attorney and Holly as a planner and Kelsey as a planner on board, that's where you guys came in because we needed that expertise and that help.
That's all right.
Questions? Board? Very good. Do you have any other witnesses to call?
I do not.
Okay, very good. I believe now we move to, do you want to call another, do you have another witness you wanted to call?
I did, if it's possible, I'd like to call Eric Richter from Washington Township. This is unrebutted testimony just for the fire services ability.
Yep, not a problem.
Thank you. We did 3 shift seats.
Yep, yes, we can do that. Yeah. I'll take just a quick water break. Bathroom break. We'll give a quick 5 minutes.
Last year, so Go on, speak to see. And signing sheet. I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. Yes. I think it was
Think that. Side question.
We'll continue with the public hearing. See if Devlin would like to call an additional witness.
Thanks.
Do so at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to call Eric Richter. And
You raise your right hand, sir. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Eric Richter.
Do swear to testify the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Richter. Could you please give us your title and your education background and your current position?
Sure. Eric Richter, I'm a township administrator for Washington Township, Dublin, Ohio. I have a bachelor's degree in public administration from Ohio University, and I have been a township administrator for a little bit under 8 years.
In that role, I assume you have become familiar with the longstanding practice of Dublin and Washington Township to conform boundaries to provide uniform fire services. Is that right? That is correct. Could you speak to a little bit of the history of that and why that is the case?
Sure. Like I said, I've been in the township for about 8 years. The conforming of the boundaries goes back, based on my understanding, and I appreciate that Mr. Springs noted it, because he clearly has some background on that too, back to the 1990s. As Dublin was growing, there, early on in its growth period, there were multiple fire jurisdictions that were responding to the city. In the mid to late 1990s, I believe, the city decided that, we want to have a sole one fire EMS provider for all of the corporate boundaries of the city of Dublin. During that process, we absorbed Perry Township firefighters into Washington Township, and it has been the longstanding practice here in the last 20 plus years that as the city of Dublin grows and annexes lands, that Washington Township conforms its boundaries under those boundaries in order to provide fire and EMS services.
Thanks, sir. Chief for Pleasant Valley testified that they employ 19 full-time firefighters and 35 part-time firefighters, and they cover approximately 82 square miles. Could you let us know how many firefighters Washington Township has and how many square miles it covers?
We have 102 full-time firefighters. Like the chief said, their part-time numbers vary. Our part-time numbers vary. I think we're in the 20s on part-time firefighters right now. And we cover, I believe it's approximately 27.5 square miles.
Are those 27.5 square miles just the concurrent boundaries of Dublin, or do you service anything outside the boundaries?
The unincorporated Washington Township of Frederick County.
Excellent. Could you explain to us what an ISO rating is, an ISO?
It's the Insurance Services Offices. It pertains to how insurance companies determine property insurance rates. Based on I'm trying to give a high level definition here of what that means. So we, Washington Township, in conjunction with the city of Dublin, we are ISO 1 rated, which is the highest rating that you can have by the insurance services offices.
And is that a scale of 1 to 10?
I can't speak to the full scale.
No problem. Does Washington Township have any concern about the ability to provide safe and efficient fire and EMS services to the proposed 79-acre territory?
We do not, but if we did, we would be having a different conversation with the city. We have reviewed this area. My understanding that it currently is primarily agricultural. Obviously, the land use may change over time. I would like to say, as far as future state of land development occurs in the city of Dublin, we have a plans examiner, a fire plans examiner who works with the Dublin Building Department. And so they are engaged in development proposals with the city of Dublin from their inception. So the fire department is always included in those discussions as a development works its way through the Dublin Planning and Building Department.
Excellent. Thanks, sir. I don't have any further questions. Thanks.
Counselor, do you think that comparing the number of people that Washington Township has to what we have now is apples to apples compared to the, population density and the amount of revenue that, do you think that's apples to apples?
No, sir. I would say it is rebuttal testimony to show that,
No, wow, no one, I didn't doubt that. I didn't doubt that they could do it. I'm just saying, we're not comparing apples to apples here.
well, certainly, sir, but it's my role to point out that on the record, with data provided by Washington Township, that they have the numbers and the ability to do that. And so that's solely what I'm doing. Certainly, a more rural fire department that's spread out over a larger area certainly has different considerations, and no one's contesting that either. I think Pleasant Valley probably does a fantastic job. It's just my job to show that for the purposes of this annexation, those people within that 79-acre area would be served capably by the Washington Township Fire Department.
Do you also think that if this development occurred in Madison County, that they wouldn't upgrade their fire department to, fill the void if there was one?
I couldn't speak to it.
They probably would.
Again, I couldn't speak to that. My sole role is to point out that anyone in this area, should it be annexed, will not suffer a detriment of fire services. And so it's just in response to the testimony about the response time.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Do you know how many people reside / work in your covered area?
City of Dublin and the unincorporated area.
Yes.
The city of Dublin, I think their last population was about 50,000. And then the unincorporated township has about 1,000 people in the unincorporated Washington Township and Franklin. We do also try to analyze our daytime population, with the number of corporate and business offices that are in the city of Dublin. And so that number increases our daytime population to probably closer to 70,000, I would guess, during the work week.
Do you know how many runs you make a day?
And break it down by day, and I want to say we had just under 7,000 runs. If I'm going back to 2024, I'm sorry, I didn't bring the data with me. 7,000 runs for the year.
In 2024, before you said.
Somewhere in that list.
Thank you.
Tom, do you have any other questions? Yep.
What is, you mentioned the staffing department, what is the staffing for Station 91, Shire Range Road?
That has the largest number of staff at it. I do not have the exact count in front of me. I didn't bring that with me, but that one is significantly higher staff than the other stations.
You mentioned ISO. Is ISO a function of water and fire suppression?
Yes.
Okay, and approximately what percentage of runs are fire, water related versus EMS related?
Estimated we do 75% EMS runs, 25% fire runs.
So part of the way EMS is the number one service.
That's correct.
For Washington Township. Rate plans, does Washington Township have any plans, is there a resolution for contract in effect? Closer presence in the annex area.
We are currently analyzing Dublin's growth projections and their development opportunities. That area is targeted towards the west and southwest portions of Washington Township. So we are constantly working with Dublin GIS to kind of identify land opportunities because we see that as the next location somewhere in that vicinity for potentially another fire station. We're not there yet, but we are analyzing that area, yes.
Is there an estimated time frame that's what they might develop? Is it speculative?
We do not have any specific time frame.
Any other questions from the witness? Very good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I believe there are no additional witnesses at this time. If council would like to give any closing remarks, I think that would be appropriate now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, all commissioners, for your time today and your questions. Certainly understand this has been a process. I think as the testimony and the record reflect today, the record evidence, City of Dublin has met all of the procedural requirements to annex the 79-acre proposed territory through all the various filings, documents, publications. I think that from what you've heard today, you can see in the record and through the testimony from our senior planner, city engineer, city manager, and the Washington Township administrator, that the other criteria have been met such that the general good of this territory will be a net benefit as compared to a detriment. The opposition testimony from the township centered on one specific area, which was the fire services. Certainly understand that, and we appreciate Pleasant Valley's commitment and their timeliness to this area that has hitherto not been developed. Dublin is confident, and Washington Township is also confident, as their administrator spoke to the ability to provide services to the area upon annexation and the potential boundary conformity. Other than that, I think the preponderance of the substantial, reliable, and probative evidence on the record demonstrate that the benefit to the territory outweighs any detriment. And light of that, we ask you to approve the petition for annexation, understanding certainly that some of the other testimony today and some of the questions, respectfully, I think, branch outside of the criteria for an annexation. It's certainly the commissioners' meeting, and I don't begrudge you for asking those questions. I would just encourage you all, of course, to go back to those 6 criteria and focus on those as you make your decision, which I know you don't have to make today. If you require any post-hearing briefings, we're of course happy to provide that. And we look forward to working with Madison County as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom?
Thank you. Darby Township would say the evidence would show that keeping that land in Darby Township provides a better response times and travel time for fire and EMS. Testimony showed that, like Washington Township, Pleasant Valley provides advanced life support with paramedics, that they provide full-time staff are paramedics, most of the part-time staff are paramedics. So in terms of that level of service, that's comparable. If you look at the number of population of the city of Evelyn, Washington Township serves in the township, Washington Township, and you look at the number of population in the district, township per se, and the number of buildings in what's largely a rural area, I think that leans toward that case that EMS, certainly life safety is no small matter when it comes to benefit the area, and that Darby Township, or I'm sorry, City of Dublin, as he mentioned, that the opening remarks, does have alternatives for annexation of this property and for development of this property, and that under 709.033 criteria E, that the benefits, that the detriment outweighs the benefit for this particular parcels of land in this territory, and we would ask that, because county commissioners have discretion to evaluate that criteria and plan on the evidence presented, that we would ask that the county commissioners deny the petition.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the opportunity to present it.
Thank you. And that concludes our hearing today. Thanks everyone for your time. We appreciate it.
Chairman,
Yes, yes.
sorry, the statute allows for other interested parties,
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
not necessary parties, but other interested persons to present.
correct. That is true. That is true. Does anybody else wish to say anything on the record before we conclude?
And under oath.
And under oath.
Figure the TV's going in the tower, say it's not.
Going once. Going twice. All right, hearing adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's right.
If AC said.
Yeah, no, we didn't fit there. That's right. It's on YouTube. It'll be on YouTube.
It's on, okay.
A large one, don't say.
Yeah.
This one stuff. They're still got voters.
Well, the agenda.
Don't show you once. Not that invitation.
Hit it.
got a little bit of business to finish up. Amy, if you would, please.
Did you follow me?
I did.
A resolution approving the payment of invoices for the Madison County Auditor.
So moved.
Second,
We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? None heard. Roll call, please.
Mr. Shea?
yes.
Dr. Sneakers?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
A resolution increasing appropriations to the courthouse maintenance fuel travel expense line in the amount of $5,000.
So moved.
Second,
We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? None heard. Roll call, please.
Mr. Shea?
Yes.
Dr. Sneakers?
yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
That's all I have for you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead. We will take what was heard today at the public hearing into consideration and we'll make a decision within 30 days. That concludes our business for the meeting.
Public comments? Do we have a public comment session today?
It was before. The minute was before. Yeah, we had it on the agenda at 9:15. I'm gonna guess, yeah, if anybody else wants to make any other comments for the record. Will we adjourn the meeting? Very good, meeting adjourned.
And it's good to the restroom. This.